Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Rise and Grind. And today we're going to talk about rise above it all, how we navigate the toxic situations and obstacles that we deal on a daily. So stay tuned as we get started on a great issue. Check it out, share with your friends, all that good stuff. Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing this morning? So yesterday I had recorded an episode where I was live streaming through YouTube and I was live streaming through Breakout, and I definitely had some scenarios. I had some situations where um, I didn't expect them. I tried to stay on topic, but for whatever reason, I got sidetracked. And not only did I get sidetracked, I got a little emotional. And it's okay to get emotional. It's okay to understand what is actually at play. But after the situation is over with, and, take some time for reflection and really evaluate what actually takes place for yourself. Evaluate, well, if I were to deal with that situation again, what would I do? And that's what this episode's all about, is how do we rise above it all? Is it something that we just leave on autopilot? Is it something that we just, you know, through experience, we know it's like, okay, I just walk away, I don't deal with it. And sometimes it can be like family, friends, you name it, you have it. You really have to decide what it means to you to rise above. Like many of the situations that we deal with, we are only here to deal with many different people in limited engagements, limited time. And when we look at that, when we look at actually what has taken place, then we can truly understand. It's like, all right, well, if I were to do that, how would I set myself up in strategies? And I was really thinking about what Marcus Aurelius has said in his book Meditations. He has said many different things, but he also preaches and tries to practice no excuses. He tries to give it like, look, your situation at hand is for something for you to deal with and not everyone else. The first person and the first notion of engagements and navigation through any situation, any obstacle is how you feel, how you see it, and can you figure out what's truly most important. And so when I think about these things, when I think about what helps me navigate and why I gravitated towards stoicism is to teach me and give me something to practice that's tangible. And when I read the works of Epictetus, I read the works of Seneca, I read the works of Marcus Aurelius, Plato, Socrates, Zeno. I mean, all these old guys who literally have been dead for more than 1,000 years. Um, Many of them have the same persona. And when we look at what's actually taking place, then we begin to understand what's taking place. Now what do I practice? So it's it's tough, honestly. It really is tough to think about, how we adapt, adjust, overcome. And when you look at my YouTube and the title, the thumbnail, it has some like balloons rising um above, like, I think it's somewhere like in maybe Idaho, maybe Arizona, I'm not really sure, but it has like all these balloons just rising above. And that's what I kind of think, like sometimes we have to rise above the ground that we stand on. Sometimes we have to float in the clouds. So there's other times we have to put things in, on hold. Let's see one second. All right. Now, sorry, I had to deal with something that was coming across my screen. Anyhow, so when we look at what we're rising above, when we look at what truly matters, we have to think about, why do things matter? Why do we get involved? You know what I mean? What really matters? And when you figure out what really matters, then it's like, okay, if the categories of stuff that doesn't matter and it comes across my attention, what do I do about it? How do I shift my mindset? What if it's people and things that you have to say? Like, I think the easiest one is like in the workplace and your household. Your household with however your family is, however you're related, what what engagement is actually taking place when emotions get high, people yell. So here's the first actual tip to navigate when you're in a toxic situation, whether boss, friend, um, family, whoever, or maybe it's a complete stranger. And it should be obvious, but it's something that takes a lot of practice, and I'm working on this myself. And one of the things that I I'm practicing on is the way that I breathe. The first part about navigating your toxic environment is notice your heart, notice your presence, notice your what you're doing and what you're going through. And what that means is like once the emotion is triggered, your heartbeat starts going up, you know. Um when your heart starts going up, I would prefer that you start mellowing out your tempo. And that's one thing that's very important to me is, oh, just 1 second, everybody. Um, but anyhow, I don't I have to understand that when I'm looking at what I'm dealing with, what I'm looking at, um, that, you know, when I look at what actually is taking place, then I understand like, okay, their emotions are accelerated. They're yelling, right? Let's say in your first body reaction to an uncomfortable situation is get you start breathing focused and like just like and just watch. Look direct. The best thing, I hate doing this sometimes because it really pushes my Asperger's. But what I start doing, what I learned from one of my mentors, he said, start looking at their forehead. Look at and calm eyes. Don't look at it like whether you're angry or hateful or whatever. Look at their calm eyes and say nothing initially. Say nothing, just start breathing because what's going to happen is he's like there's this magnetism that they're going to be evaporated through their situation. They're going to get exhausted. Doesn't matter what they say, they will use colorful indicative words, stories that will not matter. And when you think about this, I think that that it's important. 1 second. Anyways, um, so when I look at these things, I look at what really matters. It's like their emotions are accelerated out of an event or a thought or something that happened, and what you relate to is really going to matter. And so when you look at what matters to you, it's like they're going to want to try to pick every reason for you to get on their same wavelength. So if you start yelling and you start trying to moralize the conversation, then guess what's going to happen? Um, then it's not going to be very fun. And then your elevated temperature, your elevated heart rate, your elevated whole presence, um, you know, I feel that it's it's just going to take you down to a hole that you don't want to be in. So remember, the first step is start your breathing. Second step, look directly at them, say nothing, let them yell because they're going to run out of steam. and do not say anything that is engaging. How do you stop? And what do I mean by that? Like if you hear something that, like, say, like you can think like they're lying. Like one particular person yesterday was a constant liar. I don't believe that they serve in the service. I don't believe that they're a calm person. And all they wanted to do was just like sabotage, and they wanted to play victim mode, and they just constantly wanted to do things to allegedly defend yourself. But the way to defend yourself is say nothing. And, and I try to be, what do you call it? Neutral as much as I can. That's the thing, is you got to get to neutrality. So when the person's yelling at you, trying to raise their point, they're trying to defend themselves, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't. And how they defend themselves, it's like you are looking to engage less, to give them less power, and just breathe and look at them. And if you have to say anything, thanks, I'm done, walk away. No, that's the simple way to do it, right? I explained it kind of like in a long way, but the best way to do this is constantly practice it in the mirror. Imagine yourself facing yourself. Imagine you had to argue against yourself, and say the things that are going to immediately piss you off. Most of the time, people get pissed off at, um, at most people get pissed off about their kids, about their loved ones, about something prideful, something they done. And I remember yesterday when I was in a room, and this person was trying to defend themselves, and I'm like, "Oh, wait a second. Every time I've heard you and they've talked about their military service, number one, if I start grilling you on your rate, your job, guess what? It's not hard to find what you served in. It's not. It's not that hard." And the more that the person tried to defend themselves emotionally and saying, "Well, people are all against me." It's like, well, the first tactic I would have said is, you know what? Um, the Hold on. Yeah, maybe, Jenny. Anyhow, the first tactic is, okay, de-escalate the situation. Let them run their mouth. Then what? They can only preach it for so long. They can only preach their situation for so very long. And you have, by de-escalating it, is by de-escalating you. Like, I don't care. Me, my typical self, I'm trying to be a better man. I'm trying to be a gentleman. And if I have to tell people, like, look, I'm done with you, I'm going to try to do it in the most, um, I would have to say, positive way, because I'm really going to put you out of my mind, and some people, they'll be stubborn. They'll try to get in your way every single time. Um, they'll try to put you out by just being there and seeing if you get unruffled. And by doing that, it's just like, look, you stay in the calm, you put yourself in a natural and engaging way. Um, that's where you hold the cards. You hold the emotional cards, they don't. Because they want to feed off and see how you squirm. Imagine being interrogated, you know, um, imagine a police officer looking at you and asking you loaded questions or leading questions. You did this, right? That's a leading question. Or here's another example. Say they get pulled over, and the police officer asks you, or highway patrol or state trooper, and they say, "Hey, you know what? You did this, right?" Or you know why I pulled you over. And that's the first invitation for you to open your mouth and give them everything that they need to weigh against you. But if you say, officer, why am I being pulled over? Am I being arrested or detained? If I'm being detained, what is the legal reason? Now, some people I've seen on TikTok, they'll say, like, as a real life example, I don't answer questions. You can answer that way, but you got to learn how to de-escalate even that. You can say it in a calm manner, like, "Officer, if I'm not being arrested and I'm not being detained, I'm free to go." And you use the same tactic, am I correct? Well, I just want to get you into this, and they'll try to fish you back in. Well, if I'm not being detained or arrested, I have no further statements to make, and I have no reason to answer any of your questions. Am I free to go? That's simple. And if you're not free to go and saying, "Look, I'd like your watch commander or your supervisor," that's the way you do it. But the way I've seen people do it, like on TikTok, on some of these videos where they pull people over, um, they go about it wrong. They just like, they'll call them a fucking pig or you're an asshole. Look, they're doing a job. And whether you want to fall in that trap, they're goading you into the situation. If you want to follow in and be susceptible to that, go right ahead. But it's going to take you a lot longer to get out of the situation. In other words, that style of engagement, don't be a smartass, is really what it comes down to. And this is the thing, by not allowing yourself to be a smartass, but composing yourself, breathing, being calm, don't be fidgety. Yeah, it could be a nervous situation. By doing that, you're rising above the situation. You're rising above, you know, um, through everything. And it pisses people off when you do. It really does. When you choose, like, look, I need to get to the next movement within my time. I might be needing to get to work. I might need to get to my daughter's dance practice. I might, whatever the case may be, you need to be somewhere to do something. What is the goal? You have an obstacle. This is an interruption. If this is an unnecessary interruption, find the way within yourself to say, you know what? That's okay. Fine. I'm out. You know, and when you deal with that, like, okay, you can walk away, but say like it's not a police situation. A lot of times people will goat you into a conversation where it's about politics or your family values. Oh, well, you've always done this. I know you from before. Pulling you, recognize what that is. That's an emotional attack tactic to pull you into their level. Because once you go and respond, like someone uses it notoriously happens in relationships. It's like, well, you always did this. And for me, I remember quite a few times I'm wrestling in a relationship and with this, and even in my own relationship, it happens like, well, you always did this before. But the minute that you choose to do something brand new and navigate through that style of situation, and they try to bring up the past, well, that's not right now. Though it may be related, that's not right now. Sorry. We're gonna have to choose. This may be a different tactic or a different behavior that I'm conducting myself. You choose. Is this a benefit for you, for me to make this stance, or is it inconvenient because your ego is involved? That's a lot to explain to somebody. Me, I'm prepared to do that. That's my job. That's what I do. I prepare mentally of how to not get involved by not getting engaged emotionally. Like, thank you for your consideration. I understand. Thank you very much. End statement. Don't add anything after those points. After you say those things, I understand. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you for your time. You're leaving a positive imprint, but it is going to make them mad. And especially if they're narcissists, because they're going to thrive for emotional, they're thriving for emotions to feed off of and information and data. And no matter how they try to reel you in, when you leave it like a decision, like whenever I say no to my kids, it's no. There are times I need to give an explanation, but to my kids overall, if they're asking for over and over and over again, I would say no. End of discussion. If you want to proceed, guess what's going to happen? There is a consequence. and I look at them dead in the eye. The one big thing is have eye contact. Look people in the eye when you talk to them. Some people are good at trying to be persuasive by looking you in the eye. But when you are calm, you're direct, your voice volume is not going to raise up. It's just going to be one level. No. And that's the end of it. No more. No explanation. Just leave. And you walk away from the situation. And if you can, and more or less, you're going to reflect on that later. But you also might have this one thing. There's the confidence of walking away. There's the confidence like, look, I'm able to go throughout my day. Some people get kicks off of your emotional reactions. But do you get a kick out of getting your non-emotional reaction? Like sometimes, I'm not going to lie, this is a little part of my ego, but when I really want to tick someone off and I can do it, it's like, look, I offer no emotions. I walk away from you and you can literally feel the energy around them. This is the bad part of me. I admit this. I can feel their tension as I walk away. And sometimes I've heard some people like, you blah, 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 you mother, blah. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I can, yeah. I'm not giving them that satisfaction. And I know the thought of me is paying more rent space in their minds. They're like, I need to get back at them. Their ego's calling, right? And I like that sometimes. It builds my confidence. I avoided a situation. Like, yes, that was better than me just telling I'm going to pound him in the face, because you get in a physical fight with somebody, there are ramifications, there are consequences to your actions. Imagine spending a night in jail. Imagine losing your job because you go and punch somebody out, right? To fight without fighting, you know? So anyway, I'm going to take a brief break in what I'm saying. And I have a few guests, a wonderful guests. Thank you for being not just fans and colleagues, but I appreciate your time. I got Gail Jung, I got Jenny from the block, and Stephanie Lopez. So guys, according to what I've been talking about in the show, what are your thoughts? How do you react to a toxic engagement or a toxic situation? Say like somebody's pissed off at you. How do you guys handle it?
Well, you know me, I like to be firm and direct.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, I mean, everybody knows. I mean, the people that know me here on Clubhouse knows how I am when it comes to the drama and the nonsense.
What about in real
And
life? What
when
about
it comes, well, in real life, of course, I control my life.
mm-hmm,
You can't control what goes on in audio apps. Of course you can't.
mm-hmm,
But you know, you definitely could control the space you hold and the people that you surround yourself with.
mm-hmm,
Um, but it comes to the point that it has to stop.
mm-hmm,
I don't know what it is that they get off on doing it, being always negative
mm-hmm,
and always wanting to be the center of attention. And if things are not going their way, they have to make up a lie for people to feel sorry for them. That to me, that's way too out of the ordinary for me. And
Would you say that kind of person is an emotional leech? Maybe that they thrive because of pain. Like they feel pain already and self-doubt and insecurities about themselves. So you think if they invite people to that whatever feeling, like they're supposed to feel better, like they're getting some kind of admiration, like they have a group as opposed to just dealing with their own shadow work themselves, because I think that's exactly what that is. It doesn't matter where it
yeah,
is, whether it's in social audio, whether it's in podcasting, whether it's in real life. Some people just they don't even realize that they dig off of your pain, but they're so toxic that they're willing to sacrifice reputation, their persona, family values, core values. They try to promote themselves in a way that it's just like for example, what's a notorious way that we've seen people will say, let's say in social audio atmospheres, like people say, well, and the fakes and the phonies do this. I have thousands of followers. I have plenty of testimonial stories of success. I drive this kind of car. I live this lifestyle. But yet, when you ask to see receipts, like, oh, that's great. I'm happy for you. And they get the kick like you think you admire them. And it's a reverse tactic. I loathe them. Like, oh, well, you think you're all that? Okay, that's nice. And you got to be careful. But I think, Jenny, I think those people just have nothing going for themselves and they're an emotional leech and they don't realize they're toxic and nobody else does. So, um, that's what I think about that. Do you think they're an emotional leech as well?
I don't know about emotional. Um, I do feel that
Or vampire, you can call it that
the
too.
more, well, yeah, I mean, sucking the energy, I mean, the blood, I mean, it's just to the point where, like, the more that it's being done, eventually they already get to realize I'm able to do this. So when it happens constantly, you already know what you're doing. I mean, you can't be dumb.
Hmm.
It's like you purposely do things just to do it. And I just don't understand that. Like people like that, I believe should not be on audio or social media, period. They need
Hmm.
to really find themselves and they really need to figure out who they are. They're not going to find it on here. If you don't know who you are, you
Yeah. Uh, she may have an interruption in her
have a
connection.
problem.
There we
You
go.
if you haven't, can you hear me now? Oh
Yeah.
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 So if you don't figure out who you are at the age that you're at, you have a problem. You need to get away from all this and try to figure out who you are
Right.
because you're not helping anybody. You're not doing anything productive on social media if you're going to be acting the way you do. You're not.
Right. And what is the purpose? I mean, I don't want to get too far off track off of my topic, but when we look at social media, really many people I think really misunderstand what it's for because I call them the internet warriors. They want to be battle tough behind a screen. They want to be battle tough behind a voice. Like they'll do this, they've done that, whatever. They'll do this. But it's like at the same time, raising our personal position, raising that, like, look, I just not going to tolerate you. I'm rising above it all. And after what I had to deal with yesterday in my live show, to where I had to delete my YouTube, I did not want to have to. This is something where I'm recording this live on YouTube now, and I'm telling my followers, like, look, I face those struggles too. There are some people, if I allow them to get under my skin, it does happen. But it's like, how can you set yourself up for the next time, the next best situation? And that means the consistent treatment of, like, you get these certain style of people, let's call them the leeches or emotional vampires. And every time they come in, as quick as they come in, usher them as quickly as to go out. And the way that you do it is less emotional reactions, less acknowledgement of their presence. I've already done that. I've already stated my piece. And, it's like, hey, good luck. And while I've had it where I remember there was a couple episodes I made in my past on a different app where people were copying my work, right? As soon as I made something positive, impactful, they people I don't like, they tried to go and make the same thing, and people would say, "Oh, do you hear what they just said?" And I'm like, "Thanks for letting me know. That's flattery. Okay, but was it me? No." And I'm like, "Did you like attending theirs?" No. Okay. Where did you like attending? Well, here. Well, that's awesome. Now we know where our focus is. Now we know where our presence. So, Gail, I have a question for you. How do you navigate toxic people situations? We've had some conversations where you've told me how you've dealt away in a non-aggressive way people out of your space. And I'm not just talking live social audio or streaming. I'm talking like real life. What do you do? How do you control yourself and keep yourself intact? If you don't mind me asking.
Well, it depends, right, in the situation. If it's if it's a toxic person I can simply walk away from, I am. But if I have to work with them, then there's levels of dealing with that in a workplace environment. If they're in my family, which I do have a member of my family, I essentially just had to limit contact with them and always be aware that they're not trustworthy as much as you want to, especially when it's family, you always have hope that, the relationship can improve. And so, but then after a while, you get burned enough times, you just realize like that's them, that's who they are.
Mm-hmm.
There's, you have to let that kind of be at peace, you know? Like it's almost like a death. You got
Mm-hmm.
to accept, like, okay, whatever you hope was going to survive is not, or live or thrive, it's not.
Right.
So you got to be prepared to accept there's a death in a relationship, and you can move on, but it's not going to be the same, and you can never really live or thrive with them in the same way. It's more like you're a ghost, and I'll communicate and be amicable with you, but I'm not going to thrive beside you.
I
I'm not going
like
to exactly live. I'm not going to share my life.
I like that. I like that a lot. For a long time, my brother and I, growing up, we battled each other, battled to the point where I remember my mom calling the cops because my brother whipped out a knife and wanted to stab me. And this is like when he was like, I don't know, 16, and I was like 19, and I was in the Navy. And I remember one situation where it was just like, it was two guys having strong egos. I'm still a teenager. He's a teenager. He's just now understanding his hormones. But we had a long history even before that of battling. And after I joined the Navy, I remember that I didn't come back home for 4 years. I didn't see my family for 4 years. And I really began to discover a lot of beautiful things about myself. I began to discover like how the toxic situations for my family, thrived, how they evolved. And without like blaming somebody, without making anyone specifically the fault, I knew where the source came from. And they never resolved their trauma, they never resolved their damage. And my brother and I, for about, God, I'm 50 now, and I think he's 45. Even still to this day, I can only engage with my brother for about an hour or two, because no matter what I do, my brother's always trying to show me up. Oh, I got this Hellcat, or I got this beautiful home. I got this. And to me, it's just like you're just trying to pull my attention for what? I'm your big brother. That's never going to change. And whenever he feels most insecure, he'll say like, well, I kicked your ass before. And I'm like, when was this happening? I'm like, you're stuck in your illusions, buddy. But that's an invitation for me to go to battle. Was before. The maturity means that you can think whatever you want. But the more that I continue to talk calm, he raised his voice. And then all I had to say was, and I really put myself in jeopardy. I said, you know what? I never have to worry that every time I screw up that could put me in jail, I don't ever have to worry that I'm going away forever. You do. And that was a personal attack. That was my bad. That's a situation he has to deal with as an ex-convict. That's somebody who has served time. My brother's been out of jail for 15 years. He's trying to reform his life. But what he doesn't realize is that his ego gets in the way. His ego to want to battle gets in the way. And there's something else you just said, the workplace. I think that's probably the most notorious place, even at post-COVID, that people are going back in the office and there's personality conflicts. People were locked up. People realized when they had to stay home and they couldn't do shit. Now you're out of your comfort zone. You're out of your house. I have to deal. How many times can you say you've had to go to unnecessary meetings? Unnecessary. It's like literally you just spent 5-10 minutes of telling me crap in my ear, right? You spent that time. And what did we accomplish? And I would see, like, in the meetings that I've been in, sometimes people are just trying to impress. And the harder they try, and I think they can kind of sense when they're not impressing you. I think that most of us have that sixth sense, like you're not interested. Either they try harder, but I really think that when it comes to this, they're not. It's that for the emotional vampires in the workplace, you have to. It's like you have to play the political chess match, the political talk, it's the semantical talk. It's like imagine yourself being an English lord and like you can't tell like, yo, I think you're a piece of shit. And you have to tell them in an indirect way, like, you know, I think that your presence is actually disturbing because your level of maturity is garbage. But for now, we'll move forward. And if you have any objections, send me an email. Done. Now, that's just me dramatizing something. But in the workplace, you've got a boss, you've got a supervisor, you got a manager who is literally putting you down, but you're still there. They can't fire you. Let's say they can't fire you so easily unless you give them reaction. And the gold in all of it is that you will find, like, I can even remember, like, when I was waiting tables back in the day, I can remember there was always people during the certain parts of the year, it'd be nice to sit out on the patio because it was like spring and like late summer, the breeze was going. It's just chill to be outside. And I would have coworkers who would throw shade on me. Oh, well, he's doing this. He's cutting corners. He's not giving the whole sales pitch. He left his guests unattended for too long. They would be loading the situation up. And you know what my boss would say? Thank you for telling me. Appreciate that. End of story. They'd listen, but they'd never adjust. And then my boss would pull me in the office later at the end of the shift and they'd say, hey, this person is saying some things. And here's what I'm seeing. There may be some truth to what they're saying, but you're being consistent. The guests rave about you. Thanks for doing a good job. I'm like, oh. And at that time, I wouldn't be curious about who was saying what. I wanted to, but I was like, you know what? I was looking at, like when you're working the restaurant world, getting your shifts is important. What time you come in, what time you can leave. You want to go in and you want to go out. And so I would see my schedule never change. And my coworkers that were trying to throw me under the bus and try to take what I got or say that it's not fair that they're not getting a chance like them working the patio. It's like, can you handle 7 tables in a consistent harmony way that he does? Are you learning from him instead of objecting to him until, like he's doing all these bad things and violating the rules? What is he doing that actually gets it done? So, and how that applies to the work environment, when you're working with somebody who doesn't get it done, who just shines, maybe kisses ass too much, look at what they're doing. Are they taking time to point you out or they keep focusing on the shine? And I've worked with plenty of people who are incompetent, who could not work the position very well, should have been fired long time ago, but for the vanity purposes, they need them to look good. And then also, then they have you. Then they have you of how you're the one that has the experience, the know-how, the do it all. But the minute you get out of your lane, what do? and rising above it all, navigating through not paying so much attention to them, it does times get in the way. But you just have to understand, like, it's not worth it. Because, like, when I would go home at the end of the night, I'd have my daughter, I'd be able to go do things. You have to think about the outcomes. Like, how do you want to live? Do you want to get up with no stress? There are a lot of people go to bed at night stressed and wake up stressed. It's like a 1-2 punch, and they can't even understand why they're poor. They can't even understand why they don't make better decisions. They're hoping, they're praying to Jesus, they're hoping for all these things, but if God were to have a voice and speak out to you, it's all in your hands, and say that. It's all in your hands. It's all in your choice. It's all in your level of choice. And when you do that, and when you truly understand what's in place, then you understand what you can do. The pleasure of freedom builds off of the discipline you uphold, the rules for your role. I won't get out of this. I won't yell. I won't cuss. Like me, I have a sailor's mouth at time. I do cuss. And matter of fact, my girl told me last night in front of my 5-year-old, she was just like, baby, you need to like stifle that mouth. Cause you know what, our daughter said the other night. I'm like, what? And she told me. I was like, oh shit. And that is my fault. My daughter's mimicking me. My daughter, 5 years old, constantly wants the praise and the admiration instead of her self-reliance, and realizing she's already strong. But when they're little, they don't know that. And you've got to constantly exemplify it. So what was raised to my attention was like, okay, this is training I will get to. I will learn to clean up my language no matter what. I love my kids. They don't need to see me get ugly. When I get foul mouth, it's not fun. You can't be always on that, or you can try. There's some people who do not cuss that I know. My father-in-law, I've never really heard him cuss at all. And I've seen him get mad, but at the same time, never gets out of character. And I asked him about how do you train that? And he's like, because my children are my gold and I know they're going to frustrate me, and family is everything. And so when you look at the workplace and you look at these engagements, you look at the people that are pissing you off and whatever, it's like, who are going to be so closely to you at the end of the day or beginning of the day? Who do you love? Even here on social audio, I'm not going to get disturbed. I'm not going to get out of my chair, or social video. I'm not going to get out of my chair for them, and if they think that I am, it's just like, look, I've told you once. Now it's done. And if they think like in the future I'll ever acknowledge them, I won't. Because I will start using tactfully their example. I will exploit whatever, never having to say their name. I'll say things that, look, when you try to BS people, here's the example of how to avoid that kind of BS. But then I also got to think about, what does that do? Is that a positive thing? It might be positive for people to learn and how to avoid certain situations. And that's what Stoicism is. It's to teach you how to handle your real living emotional self, not your logical self, which is different. So it's like being Mr. Spock versus Captain Kirk. They both drive each other nuts, but they both need each other to work together as a team. So yeah. So anyhow, that's pretty much today's episode. If you feel like you're in a toxic environment, a toxic situation, try to remove yourself as best you can. If you're the toxic person and wants to change your reputation, start evaluating, look in the mirror and ask yourself, if I'm telling people no one likes me and nobody accepts me, start asking why. Stop being the objector and trying to put your feelings on the table and just like set them aside. So it's either screw your feelings or screw your opportunity. And if you're willing to actually say, you know what, I'm not going to screw my opportunity because my emotions, my temporary emotions may be getting in my way, well, then guess what? I'm willing to sacrifice those. And when I go and reflect on it later, was the outcome that I chose the best possible one? If I feel better at it, then so be it. Any closing notes from you ladies, Jenny and Gail? Any thoughts?
No, actually, I'm pretty good. Great room like always, and yeah, that's about it, really.
Any thoughts from you, Gail? Okay. All right.
No, I think it's all covered.
It's all covered. Thank you for being such my loyal supporters. I definitely promote, I know my friend Jenny does have a business. She actually has a couple of different websites. She does selling on the internet. So Jenny from the block, if you're on Breakout and you want to give her a follow, definitely support that. She does talks also on Clubhouse. So yeah, if you want to find out more, hit me up, send me a message, and come into a room. We'll have casual chats at times, or episodes like this where you can relate to other good people. Surround yourself, build your community, build your tribe, know what you want, learn how to get out of getting stuck. Well, you all have a great day. Take care. We'll see you next time.